There we go. Hey everyone. Wow. Hey everyone, welcome. Oh man, busy day today. A lot of meetings for work, and I have work later today. But I wanted to make sure we got this done, put everything together. So today we got a special interview with a good friend of mine, ex-guild mate from not only Blood Legion but also my original guild, Shadows of Carnage, and he's currently a developer for Guild Wars 2. So let's get things rolling and learn more about Ryetoast. Got it. Did we rest? Stop interrupting. Hello everybody, welcome to the Ararat stream. I don't even know what to call it. This is my friend, I'm not good at this, Ryetoast. Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
So I was a member of Ararat's guild, Shadows of Carnage, before he joined Blood Legion, and then I ended up joining Blood Legion with him. I played Vanilla and Burning Crusade, and then quit after Burning Crusade. Mm-hmm. And now I work as a gameplay programmer for ArenaNet, working on Guild Wars 2.
So that's pretty interesting. Mainly, the big thing is people should realize is that I basically know this guy longer than I've known Zonker, which is saying something because he's really old, right? Yeah, I mean he's been around since the beginning. Before everyone really, other than maybe the Extreme or Ares. Yeah, let's just dab a little bit about those days, the Shadows of Carnage days. What made you join that guild back then? What was it about that specific group of people that made you end up joining?
It was actually I had a friend that was part of the Lineage 2 guild. And he was just like one of my friends in high school, so I just joined that guild because he was in it. So it's kind of lucked out, I guess.
That just worked out. Then the question is, when things started falling apart, what made you actually stick with me? I don't know how. There were other guilds that wanted you. What made you want to actually stick around and go for the ride from rock bottom to wherever we ended up?
So I don't know, I guess, like, you were always just, like, the main tank. I had a lot of confidence in you that you would do the right thing, but, like, I don't know, like, the rest of the people in the guild, I wasn't that confident, so I didn't really want to follow wherever they were going. I just figured I'd go with you.
Well, that is very pleasing to hear. So, what can you tell us about those old days? What class did you play back then?
So I originally started out as a priest. And I was like the main healer for our raids. And sometime during Vanilla WoW, I started up a Feral Druid, and I just found that playstyle to be way more fun. So I ended up switching to that at the end of Vanilla WoW. Actually, which wasn't that good back then, but you know.
Yeah, I specifically remember you begging me to tank like Gar or tank Trash on your Druid. You really liked playing it back then. Perhaps, do you feel you were maybe a little ahead of your time?
Oh, definitely. But when Burning Crusade hit out, I was golden because they buffed the shit out of him then.
Yeah.
They were
So,
way overpowered when it first came out.
so refresh my memory. Around the time Shadows of Carnage disbanded, it was around the time Nax 40 came out.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of us left for Blood Legion, some left for other guilds. What was your fate after that time? Did you take a break or did you come along with us?
I didn't join Blood Legion immediately. I went to finish off my Warlord grind because I was,
Ah, okay.
yeah, I was like, I don't remember. I was around like rank 10 or something at the time when the guild broke up. So then I just like, okay, I'm gonna take a couple months and just hit Warlord because that gear was just the best you could get for Feral Druids at the time. So that was just the stupidest PvP system ever. That
Well,
took so much time.
well, speaking of that, what made you actually? Because you decided, didn't you decide to go for a High Warlord after that?
No, I hit Warlord and just
Oh, you hit
stopped.
Warlord and
I just
stopped.
slept for like a week.
Yeah. Are you happy that grind doesn't exist anymore, or is
Oh
that
yeah,
something you wish
definitely.
they
Like
would bring back?
no, there's no. They should never put anybody through that again. That was just cruel.
Cool, cool. So, jeez. So you were in my original guild. We did SOC. What are some of the things that you remember back then from those people you played with? Because obviously, there was a different skill level between that guild and when we joined or Blood Legion back in the day. What are
Yeah,
some specific things you remember?
my most vivid memories were back in Molten Core because that was just like so new at the time, and like when we hit Major Domo, I remember we had other warriors and other priests that were just like kept dying and stuff on like the where you're supposed to tank like 4 mobs and you polymorph with another 4 or whatever. And they were having trouble keeping their tanks up, and like me and you were just doing fine. So we took one of the priests off of you, and then we ended up having you tank 2 of the ads, and then I solo healed you while we had 1 warrior with 2 priests on each of the other ads.
Yeah.
And then we ended up finally beating that fight, which was just absurd that we had to do that.
Yeah, I never. I don't know if back then. I don't really. I knew definitely you were one of the better players in that guild. One thing comes to mind when we were doing Fire Maw. As soon as you said you're out of mana, I was like, please give this guy mana or I'm dead. And lo and behold, as soon as you ran out of mana, I just died. It's like people didn't understand the timing of, oh, he's eating breaths, or you would actually bubble me before breaths or something to that extent. It was
Yeah.
just it was definitely underutilized in that guild. So I've always wondered what made you even stick around. Like,
I don't know. It was just kind of guild loyalty, I guess. I had some friends in the guild, so I just stuck with it. But
hey, it was good times. No big deal.
although my intermediate guild between Shadows of Carnage and Blood Legion was pretty awesome. Was when I was doing PvP, I used to play with my friend who was a hunter named Gate,
Right.
and he picked up a cheetah as his pet that looked exactly like Druid travel form, and he named it Ryetoast. So then underneath
Oh
it
yeah.
said Gates Pet underneath. So I made a guild named Gates Pet, and I would run around with him in travel form, and sometimes I would have the flag, and I've seen his pet eat like double palm pyros from mages that would just destroy his pet, and I would just walk out there
What?
untouched. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I remember he got frustrated because he kept having to res his pet or something like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was such a good idea though. Like I remember actually one time I went into the like Alliance honor farming group's vent and was listening to them, and they were like, "Ryetoast is by the lover bill," and it's like, "No, that's its hunter pet, you retard."
Wow, this is a good time. Yeah, that was really smart. Actually, I think I recently saw someone from Gates Pet, and it brought back memories.
Nice.
So how long were you in Gates Pet? When did you actually join the Blood Legion? At what time in Burning Crusade?
That was um the one with all the Nagas and stuff, right?
Serpent Shrine? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Serpent Shrine. Yeah, that was it.
Did you level in Gates Pet? What were you doing in the beginning of BC?
Yeah, I think I was just hanging out in Gates Pet for a while and just leveled up with them and did like heroics and stuff. But then decided I wanted to start raiding again. And
Did you actually do the attunements to Serpent Shrine and Tempest Keep with Blood Legion, or did you have that done beforehand? If you remember what the attunements were, it was like go through all these 5-mans, time shattered hall run.
I think I did most of those by just with like friends, Gates Pet probably. I might have done like 1 or 2 with Blood Legion, but I think most of it was just on my own.
What did you think about that attunement system?
I think it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's kind of annoying for like alts and stuff when you want to like get in there and once you've already proven yourself. But like on the initial thing, it's kind of a cool skills gating system. I mean, it's also kind of a gear check, but at the same time, it also has a skill check, so it's nice.
Nice. So do you remember, what was your trial like in Blood Legion? Do you remember maybe your first raid? Anything you can recollect from that time?
I think I actually joined while Raul was still in the guild.
Oh, okay.
Which Raul was my friend who knew a lot about the game. Like, you could talk theory and stuff, and he like did a lot of like theory crafting. He knew a lot about the game, but his execution was not so good. Like, he had really slow reaction times. And I think my first raid was the one where we were on that boss that kind of had like a bomb similar ability or whatever.
Oh, Lady Vosh?
Yeah, Lady Vosh. And Raul killed Z Extreme.
That was
just
really
got
bad.
kicked right there.
I felt bad. He was one of our better SOC players.
Yeah.
And I mean, I loved the SOC guys. I had a lot of faith in all of them, really. Well, a good number of them. At least the ones that, helped get those raids going. And anytime we'd have recruiting, I'd recommend those guys. And most of the time, they would either fail a trial or quit or whatever. So I had this reputation of bringing in terrible people or something, like, to everyone else. And I remember when I said, listen, when they were interviewing you or talking about you, I'm like, listen, I know you think everyone bring in is terrible, but I could tell you for a fact, like, if there was one person I bring in, it's Ryetoast. Like, there's no, like, if he's bad, you can kick me. Like I don't even, because I'm like, there's no way, dude. I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to be terrible. But yeah, that all worked out. Trials was good. I felt bad for Raul. Raul, if you're watching, man, hope things are well. Yeah, it was good times back then. One fight in particular that I remember back when we were doing that stuff was High Astromancer Solarian in Tempest Keep. Tell us about that Tempest Keep progression. What was that like for the guild back then?
So, Tempest Keep we were in the middle of Tempest Keep when they did that patch that made it so you couldn't stack like every potion in the game, like every elixir.
Right.
Yeah, so like they nerfed like flasks and stuff. And a little bit before that patch is when we finally downed like Solarian. And I remember we were doing test runs, just like no potions, so we didn't waste money or whatever. And like we're getting her to about 50%. And then we're like, okay, we're going to do a real run. So everybody pot up and go. And we just get her, like, we hadn't seen what happens at 20% where she just turns into a giant Void Walker. And we had no idea what to expect when that hit. And it was just like, all of a sudden, we hit 20% and we're like, oh god, what's going on? Well, she's auto-attacking and Ararat's like freaking out on vent like, I'm tanking her, heal me. And then he's like hitting for like 1,000 and you're just like, wait, what the hell's going, why? What's, like, why does it suddenly get easier?
Yeah, that was strange.
We all just panicked. It was so weird.
I mean, thinking back on that time, when I think about like Leotheras or Fathom Lord, Morrow Grim, even Alar and whatnot, a lot of these bosses all had like a final enrage moment where like at 20%, they all of a sudden did something. It was sort of a, you know, a normal thing we all expected of all the encounters back then. And on Astromancer, it was sort of strange. Once it hit 20% or 25%, it just became like a loot pinata. It's just like, all right, well, here's your gear. Just finish this up. It was really strange.
Yeah, there was no real point to even have that 20%.
So what did you think of Feral Druids back in BC? Obviously in BC, they became something outside of just sort of a novelty. And it's the first time non-warriors started tanking in raids. What was that like for you?
That was really cool. Like I really liked the style of switching roles and stuff in like the middle of fights, and I mean you didn't quite get like exactly that during most of the raids. It was either you're in cat form and you have all that gear, or you're in bear form. But there was some that you actually got to try it out and switch, and it was just cool though. I like the role of main tanking. It's a lot of fun to like be up there, and there's some fights where like, especially the ones where ads are constantly spawning and you have to pick them up. Like those ones I think were some of the most fun, because if you mess that up, it would just be like a healer dies instantly when they get to them, or like Muru was like that. So that one was like 3 ads would run in and you'd have to immediately grab aggro on them, and if you messed it up even the slightest, you just lose a healer, and that fight was way too tuned to like, you know, be perfect or else you just lose.
What was that like actually tanking back then? I don't know if I don't know if you've dabbled with the game since Wrath or even Kata, but back then, like they told warriors, okay, now you can use Thunderclap in defensive stance, and all of a sudden we're like, holy shit! Now I can hold aggro on anything, like no problem. Like what was it like tanking multiple things as a Feral Druid?
Oh, that was the Feral Druid thing. Like warriors weren't very good at it. Like paladins could do it, but they didn't have like the health pools to be really anything but like massive AoE tanks. And like Feral Druids were kind of like these small number things, because you just spam swipe, and swipe had like some kind of crazy threat multiplier on it, and it did a lot of damage, and it was just like, boom, you just spam swipe on things and you just held aggro. And I remember like a couple of the fights we did some things like when we were trying to go for DPS records on like Brutalis or like KJ, we'd have Feral Druids run or be the tanks, because they could just generate so much threat.
Right.
Yeah.
On here in the video, you guys can see where it turned into a Voidwalker, and everyone's freaking out. It was sort of ridiculous if you want to take a listen.
Oh shit! Shut the fuck up! We did not just do that!
Yep, that's me. That's wow. A little excited there, huh? But yeah, so what was your favorite tier in your time in Burning Crusade?
Let's see.
Which area sort of you dug the most?
I think the majority of Black Temple I liked the most, except for like Muru and Kil'jaeden were amazing. I really like those 2 fights. So those ones are really good. And then the majority of Black Temple was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Were you a big into the lore aspect? Mainly because in Burning Crusade, I mean, obviously we've been playing WoW for about 2-3 years at that time. Now all of a sudden in Burning Crusade, significant characters like Kael'thas, Lady Vashj, Illidan are now bosses in the actual game you're playing. Did you ever play Warcraft 3, and like, is lore ever been something that you looked into or interested you at all?
Lore is probably the last thing on my mind when I play. I did play some like Warcraft 3, but I've always been more of like a numbers combat type of person, like theory crafting stuff and paying no attention to who I'm fighting or why.
So you couldn't care less about what the deal was with Muru back then or anything like that?
Yeah, it was cool seeing Illidan, because he was one of those characters that I knew from Warcraft 3, but like, I don't know the story behind Illidan. I don't know like I honestly have no idea, even though I've played all the games.
All you know is he thinks you're not prepared. That's the only thing that you're aware of.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we were not prepared.
Definitely not prepared.
Although we got like, were we like the only, I think, guild on our server that had like 3 pairs of his swords?
Oh, the Warglaives, yeah.
Yeah.
People were, I remember we got 2 sets within the first like 5 weeks or 6 weeks, something like that. It was ridiculous. I was actually glad that happened because we gave the first pair to Fury, if you remember, and then Lars was upset because he wasn't picked. So he went on a rampage and started bidding DKP on all my off-spec gear. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I need that. I need everything. And then he finally got his Warglaives, and all of a sudden he was back to happy-go-lucky Lars. So he laid off my off-spec gear. It was terrible.
Yeah, he was pretty emo until we got that second set.
Yeah.
And then we got like the Sarada one as well. And it was...
Yeah, Sarita, Kuda. Actually, Sarita was a 4th set.
Was he the 4th?
He was a
Shit.
4th. I remember Kuda got the offhand, Sarita got the offhand, Kuda got the main hand, and then on the last Black Temple we were going to do... Well, we got another offhand before then. We gave that one to Zert. And then on the last official Guild Black Temple run, Sarita got his main hand and got to finish it before Wrath came out, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
so he
got that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, he got to do some stuff with that. I was pretty happy. I was glad he got to finish it. I wonder if Zert ever finished his. He's had it for a while. I know the guild actually...
I remember Gate.
Yeah, what about Gate?
Yeah, he was pretty mad about my Alt Hunter, which I think was like my 3rd or 4th character to hit, what was the cap then? 70?
Yeah.
Had an Illidan bow.
Oh!
He was so mad about that because he was like stuck using shitty PvP gear or something.
Man, the Illidan bow is actually really good. Before
it had like mana
they
drain on
changed
it.
Because I think rogues would equip it and it would mana drain on their main hand until they
really?
fixed it or something. Yeah. So you could equip it, and yeah, it was just crazy. But yeah, so some of the things, the issues that occurred in Sunwell, was like the extreme type of class stacking, where like on the what was it, the Eredar twins, you needed like 11 to 13 healers or something. And but then in Muru, you needed 5 to 6 healers and like a very specific melee comp on each side. What was your sort of take on that?
That was like, I mean, it was kind of cool in the fact that like you knew you were playing perfect if you actually beat those fights when we did. But at the same time, like, if we didn't have 2 enhancement shamans, we just couldn't fight that. Like, and we had an enhancement shaman that like had to go to sleep early, had like work and stuff, and like if he had to log off, we were just done for the night because we just couldn't like even have a chance without having that Wind Fury on both sides fighting that ads.
Yeah, it was thinking back now, especially with the way they've sort of given all the buffs to sort of spread them out with all the classes. The fact that one class gave so many buffs to so many people was so important, was kind of crazy. I mean, back then they were doing like the totem twisting and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they would drop Wind Fury, so you get the Wind Fury buff, then drop Grace of Air, and then re-drop Wind Fury to refresh it while trying to keep Grace. So you're basically trying to get both the DPS totems at the same time. It was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So did you prefer tanking or did you prefer the feral DPS stuff?
I actually preferred tanking. It just usually felt like more of a challenge, more like thought to it. But the DPS was kind of fun when like there was just one of those fights where you just unload and just see how high of a number you could get.
Right.
I remember there was, I think the highest I ever hit in a fight was around like 2300 DPS, which was like high for a rogue even. And I specifically remember that fight. It was like the first boss in Hyjal, who has like pretty low armor, but then for some reason I had probably around 90% crit rate on my shreds during that fight, and it was just completely absurd how like much damage I was doing. Like normally I could maintain around like 1700 DPS, but that fight I just got 2300 for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking back on these screenshots and looking at like the damage people were doing. I mean, I don't know if the people today can really appreciate or sort of get that, because right now people in raids are doing like 50,000 DPS on normal fights. On certain fights, they're doing up to 100,000 DPS. Like it's like on AOE or dot centric fights. Like it's the numbers have gone up so much, and it's only gonna get even bigger and miss. Where when you think about, I know I'm definitely starting to lose perspective of the like just the damage and what it was like back then.
Yeah, it's definitely like totally different. I mean, the difference of 50,000 and me saying 2,300 was a lot, but
Yeah.
like I think I remember the highest I've ever seen in like Burning Crusade was around 3,000 or something, and it was like Fury when he had one of those type of fights.
It was ridiculous. So tell us about the Kill Jaden fight. Obviously, this was actually an interesting time because all of Burning Crusade we had sort of dominated our server, essentially. We had a small blip at the beginning with Gruul, Warpath beat us to it, and then we sort of kicked it into high gear. And then ever since you came aboard, it's just been first, nonstop. In Black Temple, we finished Illidan before like the next guild finished Shade of Akama. It was sort of crazy how far ahead we were. But then in Sunwell, we started off strong, but because of the gated system, we ended up sort of competing boss by boss with people rather than sort of, using a lead and keeping up with it. With Eridar Twins, we had healing issues, obviously. We actually had one of our other feral druids, Fufer and Salrioth, the enhanced shaman. We had to give them restoration gear so they can heal for that fight because we didn't have enough healers on our roster. And most of them were paladins, so it was even earlier, more difficult. Then on Muru, we got... So basically on Eridar Twins, we didn't get the server first. Then on Muru, we didn't get the server first. So then Kill Jaden all of a sudden became a much bigger deal for us, especially because we wanted to cap out the expansion on a high note. What do you remember from those times and the pressure, perhaps that... probably the first time you felt that pressure because, again, your run was so dominant. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I felt like once we got past Muru, I felt like we were in a lot better position. I think we picked up a new enhancement shaman, so we had the attendance. People's spirits were way higher once we finally finished off Muru. And Kill Jaden went pretty well, I mean, considering, like, there's always a lot of wiping and stuff when we're learning, but, like, overall, I think it went pretty well. And, like, I'm not sure, I think we did it the first time we killed it where I was tanking it, because I think he spawned ads that would do nukes that just did way too much spell damage, so we wanted warriors on that to be able to spell reflect and take the 10% reduced damage.
Right.
And like his auto attacks couldn't crit, so it was just like a beam that did like 1,000 damage a tick, and so all I did was just stack hit points, and like fully buffed I had around 33,000 hit points, which most warriors when they were tanking were around like 25,000. So just like the fact that I could stack nothing but stamina just meant like I could just go bear form and have the huge hit point pool.
Yeah.
And like I also had like a lot of it was PvP gear because that had a ton of stamina, so I had a lot of damage in there too. And I just was huge on the threat meter. The warrior or the rogues and stuff were just unloading all they could.
And this, I actually remember this. This was a. What did you think about this situation where we sort of tried to avoid bringing as many mages as we could because we were having such a hard time dealing with the mage call that Zonker ended up being the only mage in there just because he was one of the only people that knew how to control the dragon. Do you think that was sort of us sort of copping out, or what was your take on that?
I don't know, like it helps and stuff, and like with the amount of min-maxing you had to do to beat that place anyway, I don't think it's really that out of place. I mean, the fact that we had to have like 11 healers or those very specific melee comps on the Muru fight, like just not bringing mages is just another piece of that.
So, how would you rank the Kill Jaden fight? So after we actually finished server first, and then we placed, I believe, top 20. Was that I don't know if that was the first time we did that or not. What did you think about that as an accomplishment, not only personally, but for the guild?
That one fight felt really awesome. Like, I actually think the highest number I remember actually being part of was we were like World 6 on Solarian, I think, actually, when we did that.
Oh yeah.
Which was kind of funny. But
I think the big thing with that was people were working so diligently on Alar that they sort of forgot there's another boss out there they could try. And
yeah.
And then we're just like, hey, we hear it's easy, let's just go do it. And sure enough, it was a joke. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it was the easiest fight in there. Man.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that one wasn't too bad. It was just that bouncing debuff, and that was pretty much the whole fight.
Yeah. So after Sunwell, did you play in Wrath at all, or?
No, the only Wrath I played was like a week free trial or whatever, and I was like, I can't get back into this.
So what was it that it's sort of a common trend in not only raiding but as far as the guild and a lot of old members that we've sort of spoken to, certain things or situations or prevent you from not only being able to play the game but perhaps play at the level that we were trying to do and play at, because as each tier progressed we try and push harder or get better players or whatnot. What was it that put you out of the game, so to speak?
I think it was just kind of a sense of like I had done everything there was to do, and I just felt like another expansion would be more of the same. Because it was like we were like one of the world like top 20 or whatever for Kill Jaden. We had done every single raid in that expansion, and like I got Gladiator in a couple teams, and I was just like, I don't know, I think I'm done. I got this. I beat the game.
Do you feel maybe if you weren't in Blood Legion and perhaps if it wasn't so dominant, at least from a server's perspective, back before everyone really focused on the world scheme, do you think things might have been different for you?
Probably. Like that was kind of the reason I kept going, because I didn't really see much raid content. I kind of liked the PvE, but I didn't really feel like I had finished it in vanilla WoW, so I kind of kept going, played Burning Crusade. And after that, like, I don't know, like, near the end of Burning Crusade, I hadn't really been playing very much, because I was just kind of starting to get down to the point where, like, nothing new until the new expansion, and it was like a few months, and I just kind of stopped playing, and I just didn't want to get back into it, because it was just a whole lot of work to be able to get back to the same level of, like, we're doing awesome content kind of thing.
Right. Well, now you can literally log in. They'll almost virtually give you a free set of gear, and you can just start pugging in-game rating, which is kind of crazy. Do you know anything about what the game is like now, and maybe have some kind of opinion on it?
The only thing I really saw much of, I was watching one of my roommates play, like, a new alt that he was making, and it looked like they've done a lot of polish to the early leveling and stuff, but I haven't really seen much of the end game in Cataclysm.
Okay. Do you think, have you taken a look at what Miss is like? Is that something that you'd want to get a taste for? Or try again? Maybe make a panda?
Nah, I think I'm going to Guild Wars 2.
So yeah, speaking of Guild Wars 2, Uh, while you were in Blood Legion, you were in school, and since then you got a job at what's the studio? I keep forgetting. Remember?
ArenaNet.
ArenaNet. They make
Yep.
Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about Guild Wars 2, and for those of us like me who perhaps haven't played the original.
Well, I didn't actually play the original either,
Oh, okay.
so don't know much of that though. But so the new one is actually like a very different game from the original though anyway, so you don't really need to play Guild Wars 1 unless you're like super into the lore. Um, but the Guild Wars 2 is kind of like they're doing a whole lot of things to like rethink how to make a good MMO, and they're taking out a lot of like the annoying things like the quest system is totally different. Like they have dynamic events instead of quests, and the basic concept is like instead of talking to some dude with an exclamation mark above his head that like all other MMOs have, and he says like, "Oh, help, we're being attacked by pirates or whatever," and then like you look outside the town and there's like 10 pirates standing there kind of wandering around not doing anything. So
Sounds
in
awesome.
Guild Wars 2, like that guy won't be some dude with an exclamation mark. He'll be running around the town screaming, and he'll be like, "Help, help, pirates are attacking." And then you'll see some pirates like burning down the buildings next to him, and it'll just kind of pop up on your screen, and it'll say, "Hey, there's like 5 buildings left. Kill these pirates before they destroy the town." And it doesn't matter like if you had some quest beforehand, you just kind of walk in there, you start killing pirates, and then you get like experience and money and stuff at the end of it. So like anybody can join in, and it's just like a lot better feel of like you're just wandering around the world and shit happens, and you're just like you can decide if you want to help or not. And you can just like, or you can just go, "No, I think that tree over there is kind of cool looking. I'm gonna go take a look at that," and just leave the town to burn. And then like if you actually leave the town to burn, then it'll be just burned to the ground, and you can come back there, and like there'll be like maybe some forces organizing to try and retake the town or whatever and rebuild it. So there's a lot of like chaining and stuff that's really cool, and like I don't know, like I do most of the gameplay programming side of it, so I don't actually do as much of the design. So I'm kind of discovering a lot of the stuff too as I play. That's like some really cool things. Like there's a lot of they've been adding in more difficult content out in the open world recently. Like some, like I was in the starting zone for like the Norn, which is like the big Viking type dudes, and I found like this secret cave where there's like these jumping platforms. They're real narrow platforms, and like you're jumping around kind of like because you see a treasure chest at the end of this. You're like, oh, cool. And so you jump around, and like all of a sudden, one of these ravens that's just sitting on like one of those narrow platforms turns into like a druid type guy, and he just comes over and starts like beating the crap out of you. And he's like higher level than you, and he can knock you around. So you have to be really careful where you're standing. And like, there's just a lot of like really like hidden kind of cool content that you can find that's just extra difficult if you really want to go off the normal path. It's a really cool game.
So is it an MMO, or is it more like Neverwinter Nights, and I think Diablo 2 was, or Diablo in general?
It's definitely an MMO. It's got like the big server capacities and stuff that WoW does, and the big zones and everything. It's all persistent world.
Was that what the original one was like? I can't remember.
I think the original one was smaller scale. It was like all instanced and it was more like Diablo 2 size kind of games, and like that one was kind of different. But the new one's a lot more like the world is more standard MMO, but like a lot of the mechanics and stuff are very new.
So what's it been like? Your experience is sort of developing with this game. And your main focus is obviously the gameplay. So tell us a little about that if you can.
So some of the coolest things I've seen, like the combat is very active. So there's a lot of like ground play stuff. There's a lot of skills you can use while moving. Like even if they have a cast time, they're still casting while you move. Like and there's dodging. So like you have like kind of like an energy bar, and you can like use that as your resource for dodging. And then skills, just we got rid of mana because mana's kind of lame and boring.
Excellent.
So most skills are just gated by most skills are just gated by cooldowns and stuff, and that's the majority of it. But there's a lot of like very situational skills, and the combat just is very active when you get up into the like high level stuff. So the PvP I think has a lot of promise. Like the map design on the PvP is really cool too. Like there's one that's like a 3-point capture map, and there's like multiple levels and stuff, and like if your character has like a teleport skill, you can like teleport up to the other level and stuff. It's really cool.
Wow.
One of the other things that I really like is this system called sidekicking that we have. And its original intent was kind of like, oh, you're different levels than your friends will kind of like equalize you out and you can play together. But it's actually come on to have a lot of like extra benefits that's really cool. So what it ended up being now is as you walk through zones and stuff, if you're higher level than that zone, it will bring you down to the level of that zone.
Wow.
So
really?
even if even if you go back to like the very first starting area, like those monsters are actually going to still be able to kill you if you're just stand there and let them hit you. It's not going to be like, you're suddenly God mode and you can just walk around and one-shot everything. Like, you can actually play all of the old content in the game. If you like happen to not go to that zone originally, you can go back there and like play it and stuff, even with your max level character.
So,
and
does this only apply to zones that you haven't done, or like if I started in this zone and I come back later, is it something I enable, or is it just how it is? There is no.
It's just how it is. It's always like that.
So you always need to be on your guard, no matter where you are, no matter what level you think you're at.
Yeah, like I mean, it still shows you that you're down leveled or whatever, so you know when it's happening. But like, yeah, so pretty much all like the content is always active and interesting for you if you go there. So it makes it pretty cool because like dungeons and stuff never go obsolete. The zones themselves never go obsolete, and like we do some things like you'll get not quite as much experience, but it's like on the level of like it's that much easier, so you get that much less experience. But it's not like, I mean, if you're doing a zone that you've never done before, it's still going to be worth your while. And it scales up loot and stuff too. Like it's also kind of the thing where it's not quite what you would get in your even level zone, but it's close enough that it's not like you're wasting your time or something.
So as obviously an avid gamer for who knows how long, does developing a game change how interested you are in it? How's that sort of been for you? Like I'm curious as to the process. Like you also mentioned the fact that you're specializing on gameplay and other people do other things, and as you're playing, you're discovering the game sort of similar to others would. What has that been like with your interest in the game? Has it been like, oh, I'm tired of looking at it, or I can't wait to play it, or I mean,
I've actually been like really excited about it. Like, I think my biggest problem right now is that like I know it's beta and my character is going to get reset before I actually get to the live, so that's kind of the biggest thing holding me back. But like I'm really excited about the game, and like I've had experiences like in school where I was working on games that I just wasn't excited about.
Right.
It definitely starts to show too when you're excited about it or not. It's like you end up just putting like the extra effort in if it's a really good game. So I'm really excited about this one, and I've been doing as much as I can to like finish polishing it off and really get it like up to the level that I want it. Since I'm hardcore gamer, I want to have all those features in there that I need.
Right, of course. So,
but then I still have to do all the other stuff too.
Yeah, does it feel like work, or maybe not only does it feel like work, but is it hard to focus on what task you're supposed to do, or like What is that like? Because obviously you're working on a game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if I walked by, I just think you're just playing a game. I wouldn't think you're programming. Well, what has that sort of been like for you?
It's been pretty cool. Like I've managed to get myself in like a place where I can work on the stuff I'm really passionate about, which is like directly on the combat, directly on the skills and those kind of things. And like so I'm usually really excited to work on that kind of stuff, so I can get a lot of motivation. But there's always like stuff like that we have to do that. I just gotta get like past so I can get back to working on the fun stuff.
Nice, nice.
So I mean, there's plenty of work to do. Bug fixing, polish, that kind of stuff that everybody expects and you need to have in order to be competitive. But yeah, that's not as fun as making a new combat feature or whatever.
Nice, totally. So obviously a lot of I know myself and a lot of people sort of watching. A lot of us have played WoW or been playing WoW for who knows how long. I used to play a bunch of different games at the same time, but now it just sort of became WoW. What are some of the similarities we could see between them? And maybe you can address some of the things like someone was asking, how big are the zones or maps compared to WoW? How would somebody jumping from WoW to Guild Wars sort of feel, or what would their take be or whatnot, if that makes sense?
I would say the zones usually tend to be on the size of like barons, so pretty big. There's a lot to do in all of them. Like, let's see. So the combat's pretty similar in like the base level of like you have skills on your hotbar and stuff but one of the major mechanics of like the combat that's different is like you have only 10 skills on your bar, and it's 5 weapon skills and 5 utility and like elite and heal skills or whatever. And you can have multiple weapon sets equipped, usually like 2 per character, or like on most classes, and you can swap between those 2 weapon sets, so you can change between like whether you're using your sword and shield or like a longbow or something. So, and you also kind of have to manage that because that has a cooldown as well, so you kind of have to know when the right time to switch to ranged, or you can even have 2 different melee weapons, and then like your stuff recharges when your weapon's stowed, so you can kind of like switch back and forth, and that's a lot of where your like different skills and stuff come from.
Mm-hmm.
A huge change that's actually something that's kind of hard to explain or just like say that it's going to work, but until you actually experience it, is that there's no like dedicated tank or healer classes. Everybody's kind of got like some tanky stuff, like somebody will have like shield that blocks a few attacks, and each class has their own like self heal, but there's no like priest or whatever that's just job is to stand there and heal people. But you have a lot of other ways to like help out your team. Like you can drop like a wall that prevents guys from running through it, or like you can stun, or like there's a lot of CC kind of help that you can give your team. There's like buffs and stuff you can give them, but it's a lot more uniform. And like one of the cool things that comes out of that is that the stuff like where we're talking about in Sunwell, where you have very specific setups you need. You don't really get that in Guild Wars 2. Like you never really need a specific setup because all the classes can kind of fill the different roles depending on how you play them.
Right.
So it's kind of cool because like when you're looking for a dungeon group or whatever, you're just like, we need 3 more. You don't have to say we need a tank and a healer and then just one other DPS or whatever, because that's always kind of a pain to wait for the like tank or the healer that you need, because there's never any of those.
Yeah, I can understand that. I know, like in WoW, every class can apparently tank now. I think Warlocks can tank in the next expansion. It's weird, but whatever. Let's go to some of the viewer questions. Will that take away team spirit and make people solo grind more rather than getting more interactive as an MMO, as far as the things you addressed?
Okay. Actually, there's a lot of stuff that's been redesigned in order to make team play like a lot more natural. like I've gone through most of the game without ever partying with people, but that doesn't mean I've not played with other people. One of the really cool aspects is that like there's no tagging of mobs or whatever. It's just anyone who does like at least a certain amount of damage to that monster gets the loot and experience for it, and it's all equal between everyone who's done damage to it. It doesn't split it up or anything, so there's no feeling of like, hey, this guy's in this zone, I can't level here.
All right.
It's very much like, oh, hey, there's a guy in this zone, we can fight these things together, and it goes faster. And it's actually like beneficial to just play with random people that you run into. And like the dynamic events work the same way. So you see somebody else join, and you're just kind of like, boom, let's go fight this. And it's very natural to see like someone else, and you just kind of join in and help them with whatever they're doing because it's just as beneficial for you.
Right. What's the PvP like? I guess is PvP balance something you're heavily focusing on, or is it mostly just the PvE experience for now? And
there's definitely
like, what's
PvP.
your approach to that? I guess.
There's two different main types of PvP. They have like kind of structured PvP that's more like the most battlegrounds, like AB kind of thing, where they have capture points or whatever. And that's supposed to be like the competitive, like arena type thing is that. So they'll have tournaments in that. I'm not sure how often they do tournaments, but there's supposed to be tournaments for that, and there's also like random hot join and stuff. So the PvP is supposed to be very balanced. Like they're hoping to make it into an esport, so they're really going to work hard on making PvP balanced. The other mode of PvP that's a little bit less balanced, but is more supposed to be just kind of fun, is called World v World. And that's where they take 3 servers and they put them in kind of like I guess the closest thing in WoW that I remember was Alterac Valley. But it's way more extreme. Like, if anyone's played Dark Ages of Camelot, I think there's a lot of inspiration from that, where like you can actually take whole keeps and castles. You can do a lot of upgrades and stuff, and there's siege weapons that you can place down and build up, and then like destroy the whole walls of the keep. And there's like long sieges, and that battle goes on for like 2 weeks at a time, and then they'll switch the servers and stuff. And there's kind of like a server ranking so that like you don't end up against like the highest population server as the lowest population. And the cool part about that mode is that it uses kind of a reverse version of that sidekicking that I mentioned earlier, where it will take your character, like even if you're like level 10, and it will bump you up to level 80 and scale up your stats and stuff. And then you actually get to play your normal PvE character in that like World v World mode, and you still get to be like competitive and stuff. Like you won't be quite as strong as other people, but you'll at least be comparable, and you can actually have a pretty big influence on the battle. So you can jump into like World v World, or also the cool thing about PvP is that makes it even more balanced than like WoW's was is in PvP, like the structured one is totally separate from PvE. So you actually have your own set of gear like that you pick out from vendors that are all free. So you're instantly at max power, and when you join that PvP, you're automatically at level 80. You have max gear, and you just fight. And you're kind of working towards like cosmetic rewards to make yourself look awesome, but you're not any more powerful than other people.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. If you excuse me for just 1 second, I gotta make a phone call. It's for work. If you guys have any questions for Ryetoast, just spit them out. He's taking a look at chat. He can answer any of your questions.
Okay.
Maybe address this guy. He's talking about there's no end game. What is he talking about?
So that's kind of like something that's been thrown around a lot. It revolves heavily around the fact that like you don't have to work to get to level 80 in order to experience like PvP, and also there's not so much like as you progress through the zones, like those zones become obsolete and you have to get to new ones in order to play. So it's more like you can go to any zone at like almost any time. Like as you progress, like the sidekicking doesn't take you up in PvE, so you still have to get to level 80 in order to experience the final zones of PvE. but at that point, like, you can still go back to the newbie zones and have fun there. So like, it doesn't exclude you from all the like original content and stuff. There's not so much like, the closest thing that's let's see, there's yeah, for hardcore raiders, the closest content to that I would say is there's some outdoor like kind of bosses. Like we've shown some, if you look for like the Shatter or the Undead Dragon videos from a couple of the trade shows that we've done, and there's videos of that are like large raid bosses, but they're outdoor, like everybody can jump in. And then there's also what's called, we have 5-man dungeons that they have kind of a heroic mode, I guess, as well, and those are geared to be extremely difficult on their hard mode. So yeah, there's world bosses basically. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But there's a lot of stuff that's they're not as often just kind of there. Like, you usually have to complete some event chains and stuff. Like, you have to say push back like the undead or whatever, and like at the in that map with the undead dragon, like if you complete enough of the events, you push them back, and like they start to get desperate, they'll bring in their big undead dragon to fight you and try and recover. Yeah, there's the Shatter. The Shatter is pretty cool looking. Let's see, so the graphics of the game similar to Final Fantasy. I didn't actually play Final Fantasy 14, so I don't really know a whole lot about that, but the Guild Wars style has always been very like artistic, kind of like painted, hand-painted look, so they've been going for that. Yeah, the zone-wide meta events. Yeah, so meta events are like, there'll be like a list of events or whatever that all like relate to each other, and if you complete those, then it'll usually bring up some sort of giant boss like the Shatterer or the if you pre-purchase during the weekend, you can still download and play for this weekend. So we have a beta weekend event going on right now, and you can still get into it, although I think the digital downloads are currently limited because of server capacity mainly. But if they get more servers up and running, they will open those back up again. So people are asking what the biggest advantage it has over WoW is. I guess the biggest thing that I've noticed is like when I went back and tried out some like WoW free time or whatever, it just feels like a very old game. Like it's definitely, I mean, it's 8 years old. It was a great game when it came out and stuff. It was great for a while, but like a lot of the concepts I think are just like a little bit dated. Like the quest system is really good. Dodging, the combat's a lot more active, a lot yeah, like, I mean, I don't really want to compare it too much to WoW, but like I think there's just a lot of like things that are just like advancements for the genre, just MMOs in general, like the quest system, the combat, the fact that like you can do any zone at any time, and it's not like it no longer loses value. Just the natural grouping system is very good. Another thing that's really nice about it is that there's no subscription fee, so you can just get it and play it and stuff, and like you don't really have to like quit WoW in order to play it or something. You can just kind of jump in when you want to, and the PvE is a lot more engaging, I think, at least in leveling terms. dungeons are pretty impressive too. Like there's a lot of cool mechanics, and the dungeons are a lot different because like of the fact that it's not just a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS and everything. So you get a whole different experience out of it, and yeah, I don't know. That one's hard to compare.
Yeah, that guy actually brings up a good question about sort of patches and sort of future content. What's that gonna be like for Guild Wars?
So there's a lot of big patches planned. We're definitely going to keep supporting it. It's not going to like be a release and just let it go kind of thing. It's definitely going to keep going. There's already like a ton of content planned and stuff that we just haven't had time to make yet. That's planned for expansions and stuff. There's going to be patches in beforehand that do a lot of like fixes, add some features and stuff that we're gonna that we haven't had time to get in before. But it's yeah, there's definitely gonna be a lot of patches, a lot of extra content and stuff added in, and there will be expansions as well. Oh yes, Lion's Arch was fantastic. I remember the first time I walked into that place and I was just amazed by the art and stuff in that place. So that comment about the esport, you actually don't have to level up in order to compete in Guild Wars 2. The competitive PvP, you can just press a button, join the competitive PvP, and you're automatically set to level 80 with all like max gear and stuff and everything unlocked. So you can immediately jump in and be top tier in terms of character builds, but you just have to have a skill in order to win. It's kind of like the tournament servers, if you've ever played any of the tournament servers for WoW. It's very much like the structured PvP is just set up that way. And it's even the same character as your PvE character, but when you press go back to PvE, it brings you back to your old gear, your old level, all that stuff. It doesn't really take away the sense of achievement, in my opinion, because like the tournaments will give you that sense of achievement for the PvP, and in terms of like leveling up your character and stuff, you still have that for the PvE. And there's also the World v World, so if you want kind of that progression and PvP at the same time, or like the World PvP kind of feeling, then you can go there. So there's modes for like whatever kind of thing you're going for. And World v World uses your current gear and stuff too, so that's kind of where you can get bring your super epics that you worked hard to get in order to beat people. So World v World's a little bit less balanced, but it's kind of in terms of like, I don't know, you're gonna get like, it's gonna get more balance between the servers because we do matchmaking for the servers as well.
Hey guys, sorry, it's super busy Friday for me. There's a lot of, it's like a solar eclipse. There's a lot of things that sort of lined up all together for me at the same time. Apologies to viewers Ryetoast as well. Let's see, Ryetoast, serious question. Most MMOs have fans begging a release of MMO. Wait. Yeah, do you want to address Evil Touch's question? I'm not sure what he's asking.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Like, you mean like they just play it for a little bit and go back to WoW, or like I'm not really sure what you mean. Okay. Well, retaining. One of the cool things about Guild Wars 2, though, is it doesn't have a subscription fee. So even if people don't find quite what they want right at the release, then they can always come back when we have like a big patch or whatever and join in. You don't have to like feel like you need to subscribe to one or the other. You just buy Guild Wars 2 and it's there. Like it's always available for you to play. So you don't have to worry too much about like that. So well then by being better.
Is that something that's sort of active in your mind to like beat Blizzard, or are you just trying to make the best game you can? Like what is the approach here?
I mean, like, it would always be nice to beat them because having that many people is kind of absurd. But like, I just want to make the game I want to play, so I'm doing whatever I can to make it the best possible because I do plan on playing it a lot.
Veiled really wants this question answered. Do you like rye bread or toast? Which one? Obviously, you had both character names, rye bread and Ryetoast. Which was
I
your
like
favorite?
toasted rye bread bagels. Those are pretty amazing. Rye bread was actually like my original handle, but then like I got a lot of fame on Ryetoast, the druid, so I started going with that more often.
What even inspired rye bread in the first place?
Just because Ryetoast, my cousin rye bread. He started calling me rye bread at some point to like make fun of me when I was 5 or something. And then I just kind of used it as an internet handle one time and like stuck with it.
And then I guess what Sinner's asking is the gem store going to avoid providing advantages in game, or will buying gems from the choice of gold or money keep that in? Like how's that? What is that system?
So the microtransaction system is generally intended to give like convenience items or aesthetic items, and it's not intended that it will like make you better than other people in any way. So you can't buy like better gear from there. Like you can buy so there's the exchange of like gold and gems, so you can actually get in-game gold with it, which makes it's kind of a double thing that's cool about it. Like you can actually trade your gold for gems, and you can actually get the microtransaction stuff just by playing the game. So you don't actually need to spend money in order to get that stuff. But you can also use money to get the stuff in reverse and kind of speed up your progression, but like you can't get better things from it. And like Guild Wars 2 isn't as much about like a gear treadmill. Getting the high-end like stat-wise gear is much easier, and you the more prestigious armor and stuff is mostly cosmetic and just makes you look cooler, and that's earned through a separate system or a separate currency called karma that you can only get from playing the game. So even that high prestige stuff will be limited. Like you can't get that stuff through microtransactions. Let's see, PvP main focus. Yes, it's a very large focus of.
That's
Guild
the main
Wars.
focus of the game?
I don't know. Like, we're doing a huge amount for both PvE and PvP. So, like, Guild Wars 1 was hugely focused on PvP, and I think that was the main focus of that game. Guild Wars 2, they're kind of like they still have that same team, they still have that same dedication to PvP, but they brought on a lot more people to make the PvE just as good. So. I don't know, like they have multiple focuses, but they're both intended to be the best they can be.
Oh yeah, is there a plan to deal with gold sellers or the black market selling of items or whatever? What's their stance on that, or maybe you feel like if there's a big gold selling market, then you guys have really hit the big time because there's a big demand for it. What's like sort of a view of that?
The biggest system we have to combat that is actually the microtransaction system. You can actually, like, you buy gems with real money, but you can also trade those gems in for gold and vice versa. So you can actually buy directly from us basically for the gold, or do it the opposite way. I mean, not directly from us. It's players that bought gems from us, trading those gems with other players for their gold. So you can acquire gold through legal means instead of having to go through the black market and risk, getting banned or whatever.
So you figure you'll give them the means to do that rather than with the whole microtransactions and whatnot, rather than make this like this underground.
Yeah, I think people will use that over like the underground thing because there's no risk of like banning. There's no risk of them just stealing your money or whatever. It's all through legitimate means and everything. So I think people will probably just gravitate towards that. And there might be still some gold selling and stuff, but I don't think it'll be quite as lucrative since it's not the only way to do it.
Wait, is that true what Sinner said? There's no mounts?
That is correct.
How? What? Elaborate. How's that all?
So, for the most part, you don't really need mounts. There's waypoints in-game that are pretty much, imagine like Diablo waypoints where you just teleport instantly to wherever you want. Wherever you've unlocked, I mean. So those are like the main means of travel. And like at first I kind of like thought, the same thing. We're like, really, no mounts? Come on, how are we gonna show off and stuff? But like once you actually start playing with it and with the waypoints and stuff, it really doesn't bother you that much. Like everything's dense enough and that like maps and stuff that you're going through content constantly. You're not spending too much time like running between places. They did a good balance of the amount of waypoints and stuff, and you don't have to sit through like the flight paths and things to wait for your getting to the place you want to be. So you end up getting places faster than you would if we just didn't have the waypoints and instead had like mounts.
Well, maybe not mounts just for the sake of like getting from one zone to another, but maybe from getting just getting around quicker, like in just that area or whatnot, or maybe even in a PvP instance or what have you. Is that something you guys are looking into later, or just not something on the table right now?
I think it's being considered, but I'm not sure if there's any plans at the moment for making mounts. So somebody mentioned the jumping puzzles, and yes, there's a lot of those that I've been running into. Like, I've only played like the starting zones mostly, like for at least like the betas and stuff, since they've started adding those, and like I've pretty much found a jumping puzzle in like every map I've played in, and they're all very like challenging and stuff, so they're really cool.
All right, I need to jump on Mumble, guys, while this is happening. So give me a sec, please. Where is it then?
In the morning.
Hello?
What? No, 3 p.m. Eastern.
This isn't the group.
Do you work for?
Hey, I'm here. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Continue. My apologies.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. What do you mean by like taking away the sense of adventure or exploring?
What's that?
I was asking if Cyrax support.
Yeah, there's no like 25 or 40 man raids and stuff. At least
so
not
like,
instance
what would the
ones.
end game be like right now? Is it just PvP?
Well, I know it's like.
There's PvP. There's definitely some like high-end
My parents are like.
outdoor like raid or world bosses and stuff that actually take quite a bit of time to go through the meta events that require to spawn them and stuff.
Back home, right?
The 5-man dungeons are pretty difficult, so those are intended to be
years of my high school.
a good challenge for people.
And if I moved back home, I'd have to live with all of my siblings again. Except for my older brothers who are married.
You're right. Even it out now.
I'll try to
so
have
you-
the volume better. Sorry for interrupting. You got. I want to try. I don't want to cut off the Q&A stuff, but I need to listen to mumble. I'm actually on a conference call right now. I don't know how I'm doing all these things again. I'll get into it a little later.
Oh wow.
I got it, Nick.
But yeah.
He like turbo turned there for no reason.
Yeah. Get right.
So, let's see. What's some other questions?
It seems to be like it tests my download, but my upload is just
So
good right now.
you can't teleport into zones you haven't been in already. So when you first come into a zone, you're still gonna have to walk through it and unlock all this waypoints and stuff. So you still do see
I have two
all the world at least like once when you're walking through it and finding everything. But there's still a lot of like little nooks and crannies and stuff. Like you can't teleport anywhere you want exactly. It's just waypoints and stuff. So there's still a lot to find in the world.
Keep going straight a little bit left.
The transition from
sitting with 100
No, full right.
or going into Guild Wars 2,
Call them, see that,
if you've never played Guild Wars 1, is pretty easy because the gameplay is totally different. So it's not like you're missing anything there. The story is introduced pretty well, so you don't really need to like you'll be missing out some of the backstory, but like at the same time you're going to be filled in pretty quickly about what's going on in the current world. I mean, it is a gap of 250 years in the lore, so there's been a lot going on between Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, so it's not like an immediate continuation that you're missing out on. Somebody mentioned gear is free. The max stats gear in PvP is, but you're going to start out looking like garbage, and you kind of have to earn your cool-looking gear. So you still look better once you spend a lot of time PvPing and get that gear. So you'll get your, like in WoW, it was always the shoulders that showed off if somebody was good.
Boom, done with embers.
However, seeing those shoulders doesn't mean you automatically lose in the case of Guild Wars 2, because you'll have equal stats.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Didn't you buy a lot of it though?
Parts of it. I've gotten a lot from just the raids.
Yeah, if there's a robot voice, it's probably from Rise Connection, just FYI, guys.
Oh, Shadows is already up. Fuck.
Yeah, I think that's
I'll address race stuff later. For right now, for whatever limit, I don't know how much more time you have, Rye. I personally really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I believe you're still at work, actually.
Yep.
So, I mean, do you want to answer maybe like 2 more questions, and then I don't want to take up your whole Friday here.
All right. Let's see. So yeah, there is a PvP currency kind of thing that you earn and gets you some cool looking gear.
Abs, who is this guy? This buyer? Is it like a friend of yours or something?
Release date is not announced yet. Price is $60 for the standard edition, $80 for the digital deluxe, and the collector's edition is $150. There's no subscription fees.
So is it like John 2.0?
I'm not sure what the number of realms. I think we have like 48 right now for this beta weekend.
Probably.
I think I remember hearing that number. Maybe it was 24. I don't quite remember. I'm not sure how many will be at release.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, I might as well kill it. It's always a shit fest.
So right now it's open beta weekend. How can people, if they want to check out the game or don't know about it, how can they check it out? Where should they go?
let's see. So the Guild Wars 2 subreddit has quite a bit of info and like a lot of people posting videos and that kind of stuff constantly. So if you want to get like a very initial taste, that's a good place to go. There's the ArenaNet, like, you know, you can go to the Guild Wars 2 website. There's like a list of all the classes and class videos, and kind of like blog posts about what the philosophy of the game is.
That's so crazy.
I mean, Turtle Biscuit on YouTube makes a lot of videos of Guild Wars 2 that are pretty good, that he kind of explained some of the basic concepts from like while playing and stuff. If you are already interested in the game and you want to play, then pre-ordering right now will get you access to beta weekends. So that's how you get into the open beta. Let's see, what is this? Oh, guild question. So yeah, guilds have, yeah, Sinner already answered that question, I guess. They have different buffs and stuff you can get. You can be in multiple guilds, and then you just can represent one at a time. So that way, like, if you have your big PvP guild or whatever, you can join that while you're doing tournaments and stuff. Or you can represent that while you're doing tournaments. Then you can switch to your, like, guild that's just you and your friends from like real life or whatever and play with them, and then you can switch to your PvE dungeon running guild and do that kind of stuff. So you can switch between these as you play, and
do you think that's gonna like sort of diminish from the family like unit type deal that a guild sort of provides, where you guys do everything together, or do you think it's just gonna give people like, do you think the flexibility is going to outweigh that, or sort of coming from someone who's played WoW, obviously, or other MMOs? What's your sort of opinion on that approach at it?
I think it's a lot more convenient. I think the flexibility is nice because, like, I remember back in my WoW days, I was I basically did have 3 groups of people that I was like working with. Like, Blood Legion was my raiding guild. I had like most of my alts in Gates Pet because that was all like real life friends and stuff. And then I also had like PvP friends that I would play with and stuff too, and I'd have to like hunt them down on their vent or whatever and see if I could find them in order to play. But in Guild Wars 2, you get to switch to that guild and be like, hey, anybody running a group or whatever? And I think it'd just be a lot more convenient.
Yeah, it seems like flexibility and things like that ease, like, sort of what's the word I'm looking for, avail, oh man, I'm having a brain for it, but just something people, you know what I mean, where